for religion excels all rationalistic systems in that it alone relates to the outer and inner man in equal degree. We can accuse Christianity of arrested development if we are determined to excuse our own shortcomings, but I do not wish to make the mistake of blaming religion for something that is due mainly to human incompetence. I am speaking, therefore, not of the deepest and best understandings of Christianity, but of the superficialities and disastrous misunderstandings that are plain for all to see. The demand made by the Imitatio Christi, that we should follow the ideal and seek to become like it, ought logically to have the result of developing and exalting the inner man. In actual fact, however, the ideal has been turned by superficial and formalistically minded believers into an external object of worship, and it is precisely this veneration for the object that prevents it from reaching down into the depths of the psyche and giving the latter a wholeness in keeping with the ideal. Accordingly, the divine mediator stands outside as an image, while man remains fragmentary and untouched in the deepest part of him. Christ can indeed be imitated, even to the point of stigmatization, without the imitator coming anywhere near the ideal or its meaning. For it is not a question of an imitation that leaves a man unchanged and makes him into a mere artifact, but of realizing the ideal on one's own account, Deo concedente, in one's own individual life. We must not forget, however, that even a mistaken imitation may sometimes involve a tremendous moral effort, which has all the merits of a total surrender to some supreme value, even though the real goal may never be reached, and the value is represented externally. It is conceivable that by virtue of this total effort, a man may even catch a fleeting glimpse of his wholeness, accompanied by the feeling of grace that always characterizes this experience. The mistaken idea of a merely outward imitatio Christi is further exacerbated by a typically European prejudice which distinguishes the Western attitude from the Eastern. Western man is held in thrall by the 10,000 things. He sees only particulars. He is ego-bound and thing-bound, and unaware of the deep root of all being. Eastern man, on the other hand, experiences the world of particulars, and even his own ego, like a dream. He is rooted essentially in the ground, which attracts him so powerfully that his relations with the world are relativized to a degree that is often incomprehensible to us. The Western attitude, with its emphasis on the object, tends to fix the ideal, Christ, in its outward aspect, and thus to rob it of its mysterious relation to the inner man. It is this prejudice, for example, which impels the Protestant interpreters of the Bible to interpret Greek stuff, referring to the kingdom of God, as among you, instead of within you. I do not mean to say anything about the validity of the Western attitude. We are sufficiently convinced of its rightness. Christ, the ideal, took upon himself the sins of the world. But if the ideal is wholly outside, then the sins of the individual are also outside, and consequently he is more of a fragment than ever, since superficial misunderstanding conveniently enables him, quite literally, to cast his sins upon Christ, and thus to evade his deepest responsibilities, which is contrary to the spirit of Christianity. Such formalism and laxity were not only one of the prime causes of the Reformation, they are also present within the body of Protestantism. If the supreme value, Christ, and the supreme negation, sin, are outside, then the soul is void, its highest and lowest are missing. Hence, the universal depreciation of the soul in the West.